Welcome everyone to the Talking Book Program Author Talk. We'll be talking with artist and author Lisa Fittipaldi, author of Brush with Darkness, Learning to Paint After Losing My Sight. We'll start off by asking Miss Fittipaldi some questions about her life experiences, her art, and her book. And if we have time in the last 10 or 15 minutes, we'll open it up to questions from you guys. We ask that you keep your external distractions to a minimum, be courteous and respectful, and then stay muted until it's time for questions again if we have time. So now I'm going to do a little introduction and I'll hand it over to Laura Jean after that. So, born in Pontiac, Michigan in 1948, Lisa Fittipaldi was a trauma care nurse and a certified public accountant before she lost her sight in 1993 to a devastating autoimmune disease. Memories of having traveled the world with her husband Al, a career naval officer, has allowed her to depict daily life in astonishingly rich color and depth. Prior to her vision loss, she had no art background. Since her entrance into the international world of art, she has sold over 15,000 paintings internationally in oil, acrylic, and watercolor. Since 1997, her famous paintings composing complex scenes of diverse cultures and everyday life have been exhibited in museums and galleries around the world. Realizing a deficit in our educational system, she founded the Mind's Eye Foundation in 1999 to provide specially equipped computers and software to vision and hearing impaired school children so they can remain mainstreamed in our schools. Among her other recent endeavors, she has delved into the world of sculpture, teaching, and writing. Now we have a little bit about us recording this. This event will be recorded and it may be made publicly available on the agency's website or other agency forum. Any images or messages submitted as part of the session may be included in that recording. So you all have the option of participating in listen-only mode with your cameras off, and you do not have to chat at any point. And now I'm going to hand it over to Laura Jean to start our talk with Lisa.
All right. Thank you so much, Kaylee. And I want to thank you again, Ms. Fittipaldi. It is so kind of you to join us this evening to chat about your book and about your life and your art.
I'm really thankful that somebody's read the book, right? And so, and I'm pleased to be here. Thank you.
Wonderful. Well, let's start it kind of broad and just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, right now I'll be 77 this year. I mark my 20 plus year of blindness. I spend most of my time doing yoga and exercising and painting and sculpting. And I just wrote a book called Autoimmune Disease Stories. I interviewed 12 very interesting women and how they're coping with having horrific autoimmune diseases. I have another one in the works that's almost done. My husband and I travel. I'm entering my 51st year of marriage, which is astounding to me. I rescue
Congrats.
dogs. Yes, I mean, I couldn't envision that 20 years ago my life would be so rich, but it is very rich. I'm very, very lucky, very pleased. I mentor people in depression. I have a help group for people that have multiple autoimmune diseases and deal with them. So yeah, I'm pretty busy.
Oh, that's wonderful.
Right. It's good. And if I wasn't blind, I don't think I would be so energetic because I'm trying to always keep myself stimulated and involved so that I know that I'm grounded. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can understand that. Well, to since the mainly what we might know about you is actually from your book, your memoir that you wrote, and granted it has been a while, so you'll give us an update near the end, I hope. But in that memoir, you spend the first section of it explaining about your own personal struggle with losing your vision, and you refer to your time in Ruston at the art school as a turning point. But it seems like there were a couple of watershed moments along the way. And what did you learn from each of these experiences? And why did things start changing at Ruston at the art school rather than, say, at an earlier point, like, for example, when you were in San Diego?
Well, when I went to San Diego, it was 4 o'clock in the morning, and it was my first time of being, I don't want to say independent, but forced in back into reality of coping with being blind and still being a person and still having responsibilities. And at that time, my husband had a major heart attack and had to have emergency open heart surgery. And so I had to get somebody to take me to the airport at 4 o'clock in the morning. And I had to get uh, navigate the airport by myself and the San Diego air station where he was in the Navy. So, to navigate that by myself. So that was more of a reality check
Sure.
that that I didn't have, that I didn't keep any of the friends or acquaintances. Now I'm wiser than I used to be, but I didn't keep any of the acquaintances that I had during my vision years because probably my anger
Hmm.
about being this happening to me, of about it diverting my interest, diverting, taking me away from my job, my patterns of life, probably spilled into everything,
Hmm.
right? And then when I went off to Ruston, Louisiana, it was the first time I felt that, oh, I can be accepted for who I am. I don't have to be accepted. Nobody was saying, "Oh, you look so great, you can't possibly be blind," or "You look so great, you look normal." That's a big thing. You look normal.
Hmm.
If you're not in a wheelchair, if you're not have a 150-pound dog next to you, if you don't have, I hate to say it, a loss of a limb or a scar, or you don't constantly wear dark glasses, these stereotypes were feeding into the negativity of who I was back then.
Hmm.
And I didn't have the understanding that it's not my responsibility to convert your impression of me. It's my responsibility to convert who I was inside so that I could cope with it better. Just like answer your question.
Yes, it does. And that was a great explanation because yeah, thank you. Um, and you're right, sometimes it takes a while to see those things, you know?
Yeah.
Because yeah,
Yes.
life is a learning a learning process, or it can be anyway.
Yeah.
No,
If
that
if you're if you're smart, you'll learn from it. But if
hmm
if you want to stay in that, I mean, I didn't want to be a wallowy, negative, a woe is me kind of person, and I didn't realize it till I went to Ruston, Louisiana.
yeah. No, 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 that's great. So one of our readers, Crystal, she wanted to know what it was that made you decide that you wanted to write this memoir.
I was angry. Well, because no, because every time we would do a street show, those things in the middle of the street with the tents and that kind of stuff,
Yeah.
people, oh, well, did your husband help you do this painting? Or how did you do this? Or, you can't possibly be blind because you did this. Or why can you navigate without being cited? Or, I can't believe that you would have the nerve, and that's what the word used to say, the moxie to want to express yourself with art when you really are not seeing. I was 21,000, so like a,
Oh, golly, yeah.
all right, back then, and a hazy kind of environment with no color. And this is what I decided to do. And my social worker from the Chris Cole Center in Austin, there,
Hmm.
right? She said, well, this is sort of, it's, you can do anything you want to.
Hmm.
We can send you back for reprogramming as a IT tech. And probably looking back at it, probably a .comer would have been a more sensible thing to choose. But it was more fueled with anger. So
Yeah, yeah.
that's why I wrote it.
No,
Right.
and that makes sense. Did you find it to be cathartic by writing it, or did it just feed that anger?
Actually, when I was done with the book, I felt like I'd closed that chapter of my life.
Good.
Right, that I no longer felt like I needed to prove to myself or to anybody around me that I existed. I mean that that I'm here. I'm here to stay. I I no longer felt like, oh, my life was over. That there wasn't anything I could do. I just felt like, okay, it's closed. It's done. You know, I'm done with this part of my life. And it was the last word of the last chapter. It was like, okay, I'm ready to do something that I don't need to have recognition for. And I went on from there. And luckily enough, my husband was still working, and
Hmm.
he got transferred to Argentina.
Oh,
All right.
cool.
And I had several eye surgeries thinking that my problem was what do you call it, the optic nerve or the retina or something
Hmm.
like that. And in that process, there wasn't a lot known about autoimmune diseases back then. They really didn't start doing a lot of research on it till we got COVID. But
Oh.
but yes, but back then there wasn't a lot of research, and some doctor in Argentina at the German hospital said, there's this really weird disease that if you had an autoimmune disease, if we could test for it, it's called Cogan syndrome, which takes away your hearing and your vision. And it can be very dramatic. You can have vision or not vision, or you can have partial vision. It can comes in and out like a bad light bulb, and with it you can lose your hearing with it. And so I was scheduled for another surgery, and he said, let's try high doses of chemotherapy. Let's try high doses of hydroxychloroquine, which is a medication, and prednisones and things like that, and see if we can do something about it. And it brought back my vision enough temporarily
Hmm.
that I realized that I can live with it. I can live without it. Right. So that I went from 21,000 to 20, more than 600. I mean,
Hmm.
I still can't be corrected. And then I realized I lost all my color vision. I don't see reds or blues or, that kind of stuff. They never
Hmm.
restored that and didn't get my peripheral back. But again, it changed my perspective. And then over those next 7 years, I kept losing my hearing.
Ah.
Yeah, which was a whole different
Oh, yes.
cope. Right. And I realized that the your vision helps you process your decision making, but your hearing is your socialization.
Hmm.
So, if I had to choose one or the other, how we always play that game,
Oh, right, yeah.
I think I would keep being blind permanently and keep my hearing. But that's not the way fate has been with me, because the last 20 years, I think I've lost my hearing 5 times, where
Ah.
the world is totally silent. And so what do you do while the world is silent? And you can semi see, you talk into your technology, and you do something else. Or I took up sculpting
Oh,
during
cool.
those periods. So, anyways, yeah,
Yeah. No, that is. I
yeah.
like how you're just like, okay, pivot. Yeah, this isn't working for me. Pivot. I like that.
Well,
So,
you don't really have a choice.
well, I mean, you can always say that. I always feel like when people say that, you're taking off the fact that you could just give up, right? Because there are people that do that. There are. Um,
Yeah,
you just don't feel that that is an option for you, and that's, you know, I get it because I don't feel like it's an option for me either. So, but some people do. But
yeah,
I do appreciate that you do. You are confronted with something and you go, okay, well, what am I going to do instead?
right.
So,
Because
oh, I'm
yeah,
sorry, go on.
No, 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 that's exactly it. You've got a choice. You can sit in darkness, or you can go out, and, and enter into society. And people, I think I frighten people to death because of it. I really do. But I because I don't, I went with a friend about a month ago to Paris. I've
Hmm.
always wanted to go to Paris. Now, the reactions my girlfriend said that we got when I entered the Louvre, all
Hmm.
right, and I had my cane with me, of course,
Yeah.
and she's panicked to death because she's going to lose me. You're talking a big museum with lots and lots and lots of people.
Hmm.
I'm standing in front of the paintings, and she's describing it, and we got a curator's visit, where they talk about the paintings and stuff, and we're having this discussion, and she said, I was drawing the crowd, not the curator, because people couldn't understand why I would be standing in front of a painting asking what it looked like and what to do with it and what the color was doing and the texture and all that kind of stuff when I'm obviously blind. And and in one way I'm independent, but the other way I'm not. So I I, I, I scared a lot of people those that week in Paris.
Well, I would say you also educated them because like you said, sometimes you need something to shift your point of view. I once, when I was a teenager, I had a friend, he was deaf, he had earphones on. And I was like, what is he doing? Well, he was listening to the bass. He enjoyed feeling the bass, right? But in, you know, I hadn't even thought. So sometimes when maybe those people came into the Louvre and said, huh, why is that lady that can't see looking at the art? And then they saw that you were still enjoying it, you know?
Right.
Maybe it
Ex-
opens up the world for them a little bit, a little differently.
right. And music is one of those things that you've got deaf drummers. I
Hmm.
have a friend who's a marvelous drummer who's deaf,
Yeah.
because they like I don't know what it is, the reverb off the drums.
Hmm.
I think that's what it is. Yeah, that's a good point.
Well, tell us a little bit about your relationship with Al. He is obviously, I mean, married 51 years. He's obviously one of your biggest cheerleaders, but the relationship with him had changed somewhat during the course of your memoir, but also I imagine in the last 20 years too. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Okay, so we're all, if anybody's out there and they've been married or are married or in a partnership or in a relationship, you know that you have your good times. You've got your happy times. You've got your times that, you get through because of laughter and various things like that. But all relationships are tenuous. And I'm very lucky that most of my married life, we still sort of we joke about the fact that we're figuring out if we still like each other. But of course, we obviously do. But we find we're still our best friends, of each
Yeah.
other. So I'm very lucky. But I'm into. I'm not quite into late marriage yet, but I'm past middle marriage, right? The early marriage is the passionate years and you fight about whose territory is what, like, I should be in the kitchen, you shouldn't be in the kitchen, those kinds of things. And then middle marriage is sort of like the detente. Well, I've cooked for the last 15 years. You're not, it's your turn. That's middle marriage, right? And then late marriages, okay, do you feel like doing this today or do you not feel like doing this today? And if you don't feel like doing this today, I want to do it anyway. So I have to find a way to do it without you, kind of thing. Like
Hmm.
I have a very good friend. Um, that's one thing that blindness has brought me is eight very marvelous girlfriends. I'm very, very fortunate. And one of them picks me up and takes me to chair yoga and water aerobics because
Oh.
obviously you don't want me on the road driving if I can't see, and I can't see 20 feet ahead of me,
Hmm.
let alone 5 feet ahead of me. My biggest distance vision is about 8 inches, they tell me.
Okay.
So, you don't want, you definitely don't want me driving. So she picks me up and she takes me. Well, my husband's not big on water aerobics or chair yoga. So, those are not his thing. And then I have another friend that picks me up to take me to, we walk the track.
Hmm.
So over the last 5 or 6 years, I've become a health nut, and everything, organic. Like I've gotten on the bandwagon with everybody else. So,
Hmm.
and he has no desire to do that. So, but yeah, so I'm very happy that
Good.
right.
Yeah. No, and again, sometimes couples move away, but you guys are still, still going strong. So that is wonderful. He was the one that actually started your painting by handing you a child's watercolor set, and you showed him by painting the picture of the jugs. Now, some of our patrons are unable to see. Could you kind of explain what about that painting made it so special to Al and your friend Linda?
Okay, well, um, it was special because I used to have four, I don't know, round objects that were different colors on my dresser. All
Hmm.
right. And when the light would strike them, I would change them around. And I used to notice that, the if you put the yellow next to the um, blue one, it would make green in the middle, etc. Well, when I
Hmm.
lost my vision and I would whine about, I can't find the jars, I don't know where they are, where's my light, that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
He said, well, get over it. Really, that's essentially what he said. And so I figured, okay, I'm going to get over it and I'm going to do what I think is a rendition of these four jars. And so that was my first painting. I still have it in watercolor somewhere. I know it's probably in the garage somewhere. But the it was the whole idea that if you don't try, you don't know if you can do it. The worst thing can happen is you fail. So what if
Hmm.
you fail, right? If you fail, you just pick yourself up or start it again or work it out. And it made me realize that if you can do it on paper, you can also visualize in your head, and it makes navigation when you can't see a lot easier because you're always planning that route in advance. It's like
Hmm.
we instantly know, those of us that are of this community, where the couch is, where your toothbrush is found in the bathroom. And I don't think we realize that we're doing mental mapping all the time, which I think, probably blows away the sighted community. But that's really what you're doing is you're
Hmm.
visualizing your own internal map and getting around it. And this is, for me, it was sort of like beginning of structure, physical structure. So,
Yeah, no, I
yeah.
can see that. And I love how you use art concepts to kind of describe the mobility and orientation for those who are blind. Could you explain a couple of the art concepts and how they helped you specifically come to those realizations?
Okay, you've got a thing called aerial perspective, where you've got a road,
Hmm.
and it's a visual triangle, and the road. If you walk down the middle of the road, as you go, it gets farther and farther away from you. Okay,
Hmm.
well, if you're at the beginning of the road, you it's your close point, and then you've got a midsection, and then you've got the distance, and those kinds of things you incorporate into art. But when you're walking in life, you're going down the sidewalk, and a lot of us know that there are not a lot, to me, there are not a lot of changes out there. When you go into a hospital, they still don't have the bathrooms brailled. You don't have logic behind where they put the markers in the bathrooms in the restaurants. There's nothing like that. But when you're trying to negotiate, you know that things in a distance are very narrow and the things that are very close to you are very wide. And so that's an art concept called aerial perspective or atmospheric perspective. And mountains are far away, and the tree in
Mm-hmm.
front of you is very close, and those kinds of things are easier to do if you know about the the math or the logic behind painting or art. Or when you're sculpting, you know that the head is so many times bigger than the body, and the hands are your hands are the same size as your head dimensionally. So
Mm-hmm.
it helps you to put things into perspective, even if you've never seen that hand or never seen that face.
Oh, that's really
And
cool.
right, and
Mm-hmm.
you just know this thing, or that a foot is a foot. Maybe not my foot, because my foot's only 5 feet. But a normal foot, like a size 9 foot, is 12 inches.
Mm-hmm.
It's a foot. So if you pay something off and you're trying to negotiate through your house, if you were drawing that foot, you would draw it to be a certain. It's the same. On the human being, it's about the same size as your hand, and you pace off your house the same way. You know that X number of feet to your front door. And after a while, you don't have to count it. But when you're first learning how to adjust, you learn to count it, right? And
Yeah.
we used to teach kids Braille the same way, the tactile sensation of figuring out how to read. That's how I learned how to read. But nowadays, you have computers and AI and other things like that that make, I think, being you can ask Siri anything. She,
True.
she will find you where you are. You say, Siri, I'm lost. Where are you? And so if you can, navigate your phone the same way you navigate life. I get really mad at my sighted friends that are aging with me that say, "Oh, I don't know how to use my phone." And I think, well, this is ridiculous. You might need it. You might get macular degeneration. You might have a stroke. You're gonna need this technology, but they don't believe me.
Well, you always want to hope for the best until you you have no choice but accept the reality.
But I believe in you pre-plan and you
Being
try to
prepared.
keep up, right, and you keep up.
Hmm.
If you don't keep up, then you don't know that Siri can help you find where you are in your. Even if I have friends that don't know how to use their GPS in their car, and to me that would be the most logical thing is to say, "Hey Siri, take me to something,"
Right.
But right, but they don't. Right. But I still love them anyways.
Well, and yeah. Well, and that's what friendship is. Loving people despite their flaws, in spite of them.
Right.
But you also mentioned, let's see, hold on a second. That for you, the art of painting has less to do with the dexterity of your hand than the ability to analyze with your brain. And could you explain that and the effect that that has on keeping your brain stimulated?
Well, for me, even today, I right last year I decided I was going to learn how to plein air paint, which means painting outside in the natural.
Ooh.
Okay, wait, yeah, wait, I know. And the person I paint with, he's very well known, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he can't get over the fact that I can't see what's in front of me. I really can't see what's in front of me. But the reality is that if you know a tree is a tree and you try to draw that tree, you have to analyze, well, if you go up and touch it, how much bigger is that tree to the rest of you, and those things. So I analyze everything. I'm analytical to the point I'm probably obnoxious about it. Does this work? How far is the rise on your stairs? How far is the tree? Just setting up my equipment to paint outside, to be outside, setting up the paints is like, what colors do I put out? And I usually paint in black and white.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't pay, I'll paint in color if I'm in a studio or something controlled. But on the field, I use black and white and another color, right? Because there's enough problems out there in life without simplifying it. And that's part of my analysis. So I don't do houses when I'm
Mm-hmm.
painting because I still can't figure out how big a building is after all these years. I know that the shadow that that building casts on me has to be X number of feet, but not, I'm not concrete enough about how that building really is relationship to me. If it's 20 feet or 40 feet,
Sure.
those kind, the vastness of things that, but things that I can control, things that I can touch, I try to analyze and figure out how they do. That's why I'm probably so fascinated with people, because
Hmm.
all people are the same in proportions, and what makes them different is their personalities that come out when they talk, right? Because
Yeah.
you really can't see them smiling. But you can hear it in their voice if they're smiling, or you can hear it in their voice if they're telling you the truth, right? Or if
Yeah.
they're trying to manipulate you, or if they're placating you, or the comment I get all the time is, "Oh, you look so great."
Mhm.
Well, thank you. I'm pleased to know you think I look great, but what does that have to do with the topic at hand? It has nothing to do with it. It's the deflection
Mhm.
mode, as I call it, and that kind of stuff. So, yeah, analysis to me is like critical. You know,
Yeah.
yeah. That.
And so you gave us a little bit of insight into the sort of things that you do paint, but what would you say in a broader sense, what inspires your art? And would you describe your painting process for us from like the initial inspiration to putting paint to paper?
Okay. Well, I don't do watercolor anymore.
Okay.
All right. Okay. And then I went through a period where I did acrylics, which are easy to do. You can paint over and over and over it. And then you hope I went through a whole period of doing abstraction.
Hmm.
Okay. So abstraction is, there's no concrete element other than meeting some of the rules of art, like having a focal point. But 2 or 3 years ago, I decided I was really going to learn how to paint in oil,
Hmm.
because it's messy, it's not controllable, it is something that a lot of blind artists don't do.
Hmm.
They will do watercolor, or they'll do acrylic, because those are controllable mediums. All right.
Hmm.
So what I do now is my husband, I cuts up boards for me. They're out of masonite, and he sweetly paints them for me in the undercoating of a gray or a white or whatever I dictate it should be. And
Hmm.
then I take a ruler and I make a grid of 3 by 3 on this. Let's say it's a 9 by 12. So you got 3 by 4 squares, okay?
Hmm.
And I put markers between the junctions of the little squares. All right, if you get
Okay.
right, and then I draw out what I think I want to paint. Lately, I've been doing street people and faces and things like that, because something happened to me. I was diagnosed with diastolic heart failure. It's very rare. And so I'm trying to explore my relationship to the human condition, how people relate to each other and things like
Hmm.
that. So I've been trying to express myself with people, especially people that are ill and aging and things. So I'm trying to paint who I think they are and where they are in their evolution, their personal evolution.
Hmm.
So then I draw what I think. Well, I don't touch them, but I know what the math is of that face.
Hmm.
Okay. And I have them verbally describe what they think they look like, because we all have different opinions of how we look like,
Very
right?
true.
And so when they're describing it to me, I'll draw them out. Okay.
Hmm.
And then I take little markers for the eyes to make sure the eyes are all on the same plane,
Hmm.
and the nose is at the same plane, so that they're not looking at you like crooked, like a Picasso, or
Sure.
one of the modern artists. That it's skewed, right?
Right.
And that's how I started. Then I start in a black and white underpainting in oil, and I hope that I haven't screwed it up. Right? Right? And then when I get beyond that and I let it dry for a couple days, I think I have these dreams about this painting for a while, and I'll go back into the studio. I have problems with clock, that I still sometimes it's day and it's night and I'm not quite sure what it is. So, I work on my own internal clock, and I'll go walk in the studio and I'll work on it for a while, and then I'll leave it for a couple days and I'll go back to it, and then all of a sudden I say, okay, it's done. I'm finished. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
then I let some of my friends see it, and then they say, "Oh, this is the picture of Charlie," or they'll say, "This is Henry," or "This is whoever it is," and they'll say, "Who in the hell is it?" Right? you, you, you never know. It's that mystery of, it's like writing a book. You put it out there, people accept it or they don't, you put yourself, so who knows? But that's how I do it. And I used to do more color, but now I leave the palette a very, I only use primaries, yellow, blue, and red,
Hmm.
and then white, and then a little bit of black, and I mix everything. So, my work is different. And why it's different is because of the being outside.
Hmm.
Because somebody said to me that trees, which, are multiple colors of green. So if you could mix every color of green out there, you'd be doing it for the next 40 years. Well, I don't want to do it for 40 years. I want it on the canvas today or yesterday, So
Hmm.
that's why. Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
Uh,
So, you mentioned that at least at the end of your book, you mentioned that you struggled with your relationship with your role as an artist. Um, and I don't know how that's changed since then. Do you still struggle with your relationship as a role in your role as an artist, or have you come to some sort of peace with it?
oh no, I haven't even come to a détente with it. there, there's no treaty. Um, People laugh at me because I really think I'm a terrible artist. All right. I really think that I never hit it right.
Mm.
I don't think the stuff is well recognized. You have all those insecurities.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Because you're an artist, right?
Right.
Same thing when I write a book. Same thing when I do a sculpture. I think I should have done it differently, better. I should have revisited it. I should have, all these uh, this litany of doubt, okay, about
Hmm.
the art. But the reality is that you're doing um, it in the moment, right? In the
Hmm.
moment of when you decide to create something, um, until you're finished with it, it's limited. And when you limit it, you've learned something from it, just like life, like going out to the grocery store and realizing that you're in the wrong grocery store. That happened to me today. But and everything's backwards. So you have to rethink where you are in the process. So the art keeps reminding me that, okay, you've got a lot of things to learn, a lot of things to grow into. You know, you might be sure of the moment, but you're not sure of the year or the future. And so it is what is for that period of time. And, and it's like most things in life, you can't control them. So if you can't control them, don't worry about it. Once it's finished, and it goes up sometimes on a website, and sometimes it gets sold before it goes up on a website. Lately, I have been maintaining my website because it's been luckily out the door before it gets
Nice.
photographed and some yeah that's very reaffirming, but
Oh, yeah.
it's yeah it's nice, but it's not really the intention, if that makes sense.
No, it does. my husband is an artist, and so and I've dabbled, and I'll always say, well, I'm not an artist, I'm a librarian, and he'll say, Laura, when you make art, do you enjoy it? And I said, yes. He says, then you're an artist.
Exactly. Anybody.
So yeah, anybody can be an artist. You have that desire to create, you create, bam, you're in the club.
Right. And the thing about art is that you don't have to have, well, talent is not a word of the art community. The art community probably is analysis and perseverance and intention and emotion and self-expression. And that's what we do on a daily basis anyways. When we have a conversation with a stranger in the grocery store, we're expressing our minute interaction with another human being. It's the same thing you're doing when you finger paint, or you do an abstract, or you pick up a brush, or you decide you're going to doodle. I mean, there's this whole art trend out there called Zentangle, that people doodle and then they color in the doodles. I haven't done it myself, but somebody said it's really satisfying. Or you so, and then people have poetry, that's an art. I mean, there are a lot of things you can do that, as long as you're not too self-critical and say, oh, I'm not going to take the plunge. Well, that's a whole different thing. As long as
Yeah.
you're not afraid of your shadow and enjoy it, why not, right?
Right,
You
no,
know, I
absolutely.
right, and I have a lot of friends that I have a very good friend that happens to be blind. She has the same disease I have, and she makes jewelry.
Hmm.
You talk about that's dangerous. I mean, she's using hot things,
Oh yeah, yeah.
right? And she's using tools, right? I
Yes.
don't, I don't use the pliers. I don't, I don't use a Dremel. Those kind. She's a real. She goes to Home Depot and she buys tools, and I found this amazing because but she's not afraid. She figures, well, okay, if I cut myself, it's not a big deal. She was doing stained glass for a while.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. So amazing.
And oh, I'm pivoting a little bit here with this question. But you did mention your friend has the same disease that you do. For so long during the course of your memoir, you didn't have a name for what was causing your vision loss and the other issues you were having. How did finally finding out that it was, oh, and I'm going to totally slaughter its name, I'm sorry, vasculitis affect
Vascular.
you? I'm
Yeah,
sorry?
it's vasculitis is a umbrella term for
Okay.
a group of autoimmune diseases.
Okay.
Okay, and in that autoimmune disease, well, I have like 8 or 10 autoimmune diseases. They found blood tests help, to bring them up.
Sure.
What do you call it? Biopsies confirm them. I
Well,
had
and
like
like you said, they didn't even get a lot of the of knowing what exactly was going on until COVID. Um,
right, because everybody's heard of MS, multiple
hmm
sclerosis. That is the most common autoimmune disease out there, and a lot of people have heard of rheumatoid arthritis,
hmm
right? But the rare ones, and I have 8 rare ones. They really somebody had done research on them, but they don't have a lot of patients that have it, or you know, a lot of people in the world that have it. And so over the years, by testing, they found that I have vasculitis. I have what they call mixed connective tissue disorder, very rare. It's 4 autoimmune diseases like lupus and scleroderma, and 2 others that are all wrapped into one. I've got a thing called EGPA, which is eosinophilic um, granulomatosis, which is a form of a lung disease that presents itself in an acute asthma. I've got this Cogan's that takes away your hearing and your vision. I could go on and on. I've got 8 or 10, and they found out that I have genetic primary immune deficiency, which means I have no immunity to anything.
Oh,
And they didn't,
golly.
yeah, and they didn't find that out till 5 years. COVID.
Yeah.
I'm on my third year of knowing that I have this, but and all of these things, some things have medications, some things you just learn to cope with, and I suppose being labeled with all these diseases, you can take the one road and say, I'm never going to leave the house. And the other way I look at it and say, well, I've got these things just as long as it doesn't impact my day too much and I don't waste too much time um, dealing with it, okay, and I can go out and do whatever I want to do. It's fine. I might have these things, but these things don't have me.
Hmm.
So that's that's part of it. But it was pretty. It's nice to have a label, but it really doesn't mean much. Because a lot of things. And then recently, as I said, I was diagnosed with diastolic heart failure,
Hmm.
and it comes with having a part of mixed connect tissue disorder. It's the primary cause of death with this particular disease. And so it makes you rethink your mortality and what you want to do and that kind of stuff. But you don't spend, maybe 20 minutes thinking about it. And then you go on and think, okay, well, I could spend all my time being fearful, but I don't have the time to be fearful. So I have to go in the studio and paint or go out and walk with my friends or go take a trip, you know,
Yeah.
that right?
Yeah.
So
Just keep on keeping on, which is what you've been doing. Yeah.
yeah, which is very cool. You know,
So, do you have any advice that you would give to anyone who's either losing their sight or coping with a chronic illness?
um, I would say that the number one thing you have to do is don't let others put a label. Well, I think people that have a chronic illness get a lot of, oh, I'm so sorry you have this. Let me tell you about my um, bunion, or let me tell you about my, in 1942, I had surgery for cancer. Not that we should discount people that have had cancer, right? But
Hmm.
it's not the same thing. That there's different forms of empathy.
Right.
You have to say, okay, do you discuss this with people or you don't discuss this with people? You make that decision first.
Hmm.
And then if you get into a support group, do you continue with the support group if the support group never gets beyond, um, I can't adjust to this stage?
Right.
You have to surround yourself with an attitude that, okay, yes, you have X, but X is not going to control you. So you have to have, you have to get a sense of perspective, I think,
Hmm.
and good sense of humor, right?
Yeah. Yeah. No, a good sense of humor will get you through a lot of things in life.
Right. And being grateful, you
Hmm.
know, because if I hadn't lost my vision, okay,
Hmm.
I wouldn't be so um, pleased with my daily activities. I wouldn't be so thankful. I am very grateful that I am where I am today. I just, so to be sad about it, okay, yes, I was angry and sad about it originally,
Hmm.
but not but I didn't want to continue. So everybody has to make their own decision of where they want to be. And then you've got to take control. You've got to
Hmm.
take control of your life. If you've got a chronic disease and they say to you, okay, you can't eat Pepsi Colas and Dunkin' Donuts for breakfast, right? And you continue to do this, then that's a decision you have to make. Not that it's bad or good, but you know, it depends on how much control you want over your life. So,
Yeah.
mhm, yeah.
Well, well then it's been 20 years since you published your book, which, as we were saying before, is it's a good amount of time, a lot of time to do a lot of different things. Would you like to give us an update on what you've been doing since you published the book?
Okay, I wrote 5 books.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, the most recent is on autoimmune diseases and how people cope with them. All
Okay.
right. I have 2 books in the work. One is about embracing life, about my aunt who's 105 years old, was 105 years old, and all the things she did when she turned 75. She worked for Earthwatch and all her adventures after being in a sheltered environment for the first 75 years.
Wow.
Right? Yeah, it's hopefully it'll be well received. I've traveled almost anywhere I can think of. I've volunteered. I've made money so people get computers. I've done art. As I said, I exercise. I am so busy. I wonder how I ever worked.
Right? Yeah. Well, the working the day job just held you back, really. Let's be honest. So,
I've taken, I've
I'm sorry.
taken the most recent thing I've done, besides going with my girlfriend to Paris, is I decided I wanted to see how independent I was after being married 50 years, right?
Mhm.
So I took myself on a vacation by myself. I'd never done that before. So
Right.
I'm constantly setting milestones for myself, which is, you know, that's part of me. But yeah.
Yeah. No, no, I think that's great. So this is a more of a personal question because I foster rescue dogs. So how did you get into rescuing dogs?
All right. Well, I had a leader dog,
Mm-hmm.
Solomon, right? And you know how they retire them out when they get too old.
Yeah.
Okay. And then I got another one named Bach. And he was a great dog, but he died of Cushing's disease. And I said, I can't go through this loss again. I,
Yeah. Yeah.
even though and I said, well, I have to get beyond having an animal be my vision. That was my decision.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody said, well, like, to be dogless for a while. And I tried it for 3 years and I realized that, no, this wasn't a great thing for me. A lot of people can be dogless. I can't be. So I signed up for a small breed rescue league and started getting these little small breeds. And I had a friend who's no longer living, and she had a small dog, and she said, "Well, call these people and see if you can adopt a dog." And I got one small dog, and then I got another small dog, and I had then I had like six small dogs, and I thought, well, my husband and I love to travel. He really loves to travel. And so I said, well, I can't take six dogs with me. So I started placing them out. And now I'm down to two dogs that go with us everywhere, Walmart, the grocery store, if they won't take them, these dogs don't go. And that's where I am now, because we're not home a lot. Um,
Right.
right. So uh, dogs are my passion. A lot of people like cats. I'm allergic to them, so dogs are my passion. And then for a while there, I was fostering little lizards, like
Oh,
reptiles,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, but I don't do that anymore because you actually have to control their environment. It's
Mm-hmm.
not fair to them to move them from a hot climate to a cold climate, and you really can't put them in a camper. We like to camp, so right. You can't be walking your little iguana in cold weather and putting a jacket on it. So I don't do that anymore either. But I do have dogs. I really love dogs. So
Well, good. That's wonderful. Like I said, I do it too, so I definitely understand the appeal. But all right. Well, we've only got about 5 more minutes left, so I'm actually not going to open it up to questions since we're running out of time. So my apologies to our participants. Um, but I just want to ask one last question. If there's anything that you've read lately that you would recommend.
anything I've read lately, I'm reading. I hate to say this. I listen to talking books a lot,
Hmm.
but okay. But I'm at that stage of life where I can't remember the titles.
That's fair.
Okay. And I'm not a television watcher, so I can't recommend that. But I did see we went to the Tom Cruise movie, Mission Impossible. That
Hmm.
was pretty good. I guess my husband said the special effects were super. Um, so yeah,
Do you do the audio description when you go to the movies, or do you not?
I do the audio description. But my big thing is music.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. I decided that this summer I was going to learn how to play the piano.
Oh, cool.
Okay, so I'm doing piano lessons, and I'm a big music listener. And so I've been listening to blues and reggae lately.
Hmm.
So I love any kind of music, and hopefully the listeners won't get down on me, but I don't like rap because I don't understand the poetry behind it. But I like any kind of other music. So I want to learn how to play all this stuff. And 2 years ago, I decided I was going to learn how to play the guitar
Hmm.
till I realized I don't have the dexterity anymore,
I see.
and it would
Yeah.
to I would break the strings, and I couldn't, replace the strings on my guitar. So the guitar is nicely sitting on a wall, that kind of stuff. But I'm through the musical stage right now. I've tried the flute, and now I think the piano will be more forgiving of my inability to keep time. But you know. That's my big thing is the piano right now. And I'm very proud. I'm in book 3 of Alfred, so
Oh,
that's pretty
good.
cool. Yeah,
Congratulations. That's awesome.
yeah. But I want to thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Oh, well, wait, and thank you for again for being kind enough to join us during your vacation and to talking about your first book, your memoir, and about everything you've been